Imagine being locked inside a pitch-black room with no sound, no sense of time, and nothing but your own thoughts to keep you company. Days turn into weeks, and soon you're not sure if you're dreaming or awake. Now imagine that this was a real experiment, conducted in the name of science. Welcome to Singularity Animations, where we uncover the strangest, most unbelievable stories from the world of science and history. Today we're diving deep into some of the most bizarre science experiments ever conducted. Some so strange, you'll wonder how they were even approved in the first place. And trust me, the last one is so shocking, it will stay with you long after this video ends. The cat telephone. Let's start with something weirdly adorable and a little unsettling. In 1929, Ernest Glenn Weaver and Charles Bray wanted to figure out how hearing works. Their solution? They turned a cat into a living telephone. Yes, you heard that right. They surgically removed part of the cat's skull, exposed its auditory nerve, and connected it to an electrical cable. When sound was made near the cat's ears, the signal traveled down the wire and was picked up by a receiver on the other end, allowing them to transmit sound through the cat's head. The most disturbing part? The experiment worked. The cat's auditory nerves acted like a microphone. Science learned a lot about how hearing functions, but the cat, sadly, did not survive. The Stanford Prison Experiment. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo created what became one of the most infamous psychology experiments ever. He converted the basement of Stanford University into a fake prison and divided 24 students into two groups, guards and prisoners. The goal was to observe how power dynamics played out in a controlled setting. But things spiraled quickly. Within just 36 hours, the guards began humiliating and psychologically abusing the prisoners. Some prisoners had emotional breakdowns. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks, but Zimbardo had to shut it down after just 6 days. The Stanford Prison Experiment showed how ordinary people can commit horrifying acts when placed in positions of authority, a finding that still shakes psychology to this day. The Baby Albert Experiment. In 1920, behaviorist John B. Watson wanted to prove that fear could be taught. He found a 9-month-old baby, known only as Little Albert. First, he let Albert play with a white rat. No fear. Then Watson started banging a steel bar with a hammer every time Albert touched the rat. After just a few tries, Albert started crying at the mere sight of the rat. No noise required. Eventually, he became terrified of anything white and fluffy, rabbits, dogs, even Santa Claus's beard. Watson had just proven emotional conditioning, but at the cost of traumatizing a child for life. The Sleep Deprivation Experiments. In the 1950s, researchers wanted to know what happens when humans are deprived of sleep for extreme periods. The record was set by a 17-year-old student named Randy Gardner in 1964. He stayed awake for 11 straight days. At first, he was just tired. But then came mood swings, hallucinations, paranoia, and memory loss. By day 11, he could barely speak coherently. After a long sleep, he recovered completely, but the experiment revealed just how fragile the human mind becomes without rest. The Facial Expressions and Emotion Experiment. In the 1980s, psychologist Paul Ekman, the man whose work inspired the TV show Lie to Me, wanted to prove that facial expressions are universal. He traveled to remote tribes in Papua New Guinea and showed them pictures of people expressing emotions like fear, anger, joy, and sadness. Surprisingly, the tribes, who had never seen Western faces before, identified the emotions with almost perfect accuracy. Ekman's research revealed something profound. Our emotions are hardwired into us, no matter where we come from. The elephant on LSD. In 1962, researchers at the University of Oklahoma wanted to see if LSD could induce must, a state of heightened aggression, in elephants. They gave an elephant named Tusko an enormous dose of LSD, nearly 3,000 times what a human would take. Within minutes, Tusko collapsed, had seizures, and died. The experiment was a complete failure, and widely criticized, but it remains one of the most shocking examples of careless animal research. The most shocking, the Isolated Sensory Deprivation Experiment. Now for the most haunting experiment of them all. In the 1950s, Canadian psychologist Donald Hebb paid college students to lie in a small silent room, wearing goggles, gloves, and ear coverings, for as long as they could endure. What happened next was terrifying. Within just a few hours, The students became bored. But after a day, they began hallucinating. Some saw dogs, light flashes, or patterns moving across the walls. Others reported feeling like they were floating out of their bodies. After 2 or 3 days, they became psychologically broken. They couldn't concentrate, couldn't think straight, and some were too traumatized to continue. When researchers tried to show them simple images or play recordings, the students could barely comprehend them, as if their brains had been rewired. Hebb's conclusion: our minds cannot survive without stimulation. Left alone with nothing but silence, we begin to lose touch with reality itself. And here's the kicker: this research was later used in the development of psychological torture techniques. In other words, what began as pure science ended up shaping some of the darkest practices in human history. Outro. So what do these bizarre experiments teach us? That science, for all its brilliance, has often pushed the limits of ethics and morality, sometimes going too far. From cats turned into telephones, to students locked in dark rooms until they hallucinated, these experiments reveal just how curious, and sometimes reckless humanity can be in its pursuit of knowledge. Which of these experiments shocked you the most? And do you think science should be allowed to go this far? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time here on Singularity Animations, where we uncover the mysteries that make you question everything.